Senator Coons, we had some breaking news as we came on the air. I want to read you this ex-post from Caroline Leavitt on the president leaving the G7 summit early and get your response. Quote, President Trump had a great day at the G7, even signing a major trade deal with the United Kingdom and Prime Minister Keir Starmer. We can get to that in a moment. Much was accomplished, but because of what is going on in the Middle East, President Trump will be leaving tonight after dinner with heads of state. Take that as you will, your response to the president choosing to leave early.
Well, look, frankly, the president has traveling with him the ability to stay in touch with our armed forces and to stay on top of any situation in the world. I hate to say it, but my gut hunch is this was a party at which he wasn't especially welcome. He has picked fights with every one of our major allies represented at this summit. His chaotic and ill-conceived tariff fights with our partners and allies may well have meant some very awkward and difficult conversations. I hope that he is coming back for a constructive reason, but I'm alarmed, given some of his recent tweets, that this might be the next step in spiraling towards getting involved in a major war in the Middle East.
Trump is back in the spotlight. He attended the G7 summit and claimed to have signed a trade agreement with the United Kingdom. But there's a small problem. Keir Starmer is currently the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Yes, but it's still unclear whether this so-called agreement actually exists. So, he may have seriously made it up. Are we surprised? No. This is the same man who once went to the eye of the storm and said, "This is beautiful." Now he's saying, "I had a successful day," and rushing off the table and returning. Why? Of course, something is happening in the Middle East, but let's be honest, Trump didn't get along with anyone at this summit. Constant bickering with Macron, declaring Germany an enemy, nearly coming to blows with Canada. The alliance this man talks about is like his relationship with Fox News, one-sided and highly manipulative. So in short, he left the party feeling like the outcast kid who thinks, "No one here likes me." But this kid has access to nuclear weapons, and that's the scary part, not the funny part. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on the latest news commentary.
I was confused about this announcement from Caroline Leavitt, and for a couple reasons. One, if you're going to announce that your principal is leaving the G7, you gotta put a little more around it. This has inspired more questions and it's given answers. But two, to cite the Middle East in this, part of on the agenda for the G7 was the crisis in the Middle East.
Right.
The G7 members have a stake in what is going on. They want to contain the conflict, and I dovetail that with the fact that over the years the G7 has expanded to instead of just coordination about the economy, now it's broader world crises. The war in Ukraine, Russia's war in Ukraine was on the list. Why leave if that is the reason? Because the president got a skiff at his hotel, let me tell you. That's how it works, folks, okay? There's a skiff at the hotel. He can have his meeting.
So President Trump and Secretary Hegseth are spectacularly ill-prepared and unqualified to deal with this exact moment, which it pains me to say, but is the reality.
So look, there's this statement. What Caroline Leavitt is doing is not reporting the news. It's more like throwing a smoke bomb. They say, Trump is leaving the G7 early because of developments in the Middle East. But wasn't the Middle East one of the main agenda items of the G7? Shouldn't you stay there and work with your allies to find a solution? But what is Trump doing? He's packing his bags and leaving the hotel early. And no, it's not about leaving the hotel. This guy is traveling on Air Force One, and wherever he goes, the Pentagon sets up an office. So the excuse is there's an emergency, he has to return. That's a load of bullshit. The real issue is this. Trump has always been an outsider at these summits because world leadership doesn't work with someone who plays golf while being president. A leader builds a team in times of crisis, but Trump doesn't want anyone on his team because he can't even stand looking in the mirror. NATO, G7, EU. He either treated them like enemies or at best didn't take them seriously. And now, as the Middle East boils over, Russia bombs Ukraine, and Iran and North Korea shake hands. There's no strategy at the White House. None, my friend, because strategy requires planning. And Trump's plan is usually this: tweet, then disappear.
You know, whatever kind of varnish they had from the first administration is completely off now. They're not even pretending to do anything else. I mean, their first foreign trip was back to Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, not for any, peace-seeking purposes or no foreign policy agenda. It was a bunch of business deals. It was a business trip. So look, corruption is the opposite of democracy. Democracy is the system which advances the idea that every single person matters and we all rise together. The opposite of that is a corrupt, monarchical or dictatorial system where you have a tiny group in society that uses public resources and private resources just to benefit themselves. And that's what we've got now. It's a gangster state.
Look, the polished Trump era is over. Whatever glitz there was has worn off. They're not even trying to dress it up anymore. Diplomacy, peace initiatives, whatever. Remember his first foreign visit? Right to Saudi Arabia. Why? For peace? No, dear, for deals. If there's money to be made, Trump is there. He used the White House more like a CEO's office than the Oval Office. He determined foreign policy based on the question, which prince will invest more in me? This isn't democracy. This is a gangster state. So he basically dismantled the so-called system and established his own little club of the wealthy. And this isn't just in foreign policy. It's the same game inside the country. Even on the issue of immigration, a topic the right has been manipulating for years, the people were in the streets. Imagine a country where masked agents force people into vehicles. That's what Trump turned into reality. He brought us one step closer to the dystopian world of those horror films. And they still say, we're in control of the immigration issue. Really? If you say business first, even while human rights are being violated, you're not running a country. You're a holding company chasing profits. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on the latest news commentary.
Well, you're right that people understand that either we have constitutional rights and protections for everybody in the country or we don't have any at all. And that's why due process are the two most beautiful words in the English language. They separate our freedoms from the arbitrary power of the state. But I think Donald Trump gave the whole game away on Thursday, where apparently after meetings with his Secretary of Agriculture and hearing from a bunch of large agribusiness executives and companies, he said, we are no longer going to be deporting people from farm states, meaning undocumented immigrants, because that's the backbone of that industry. And he said, these are good people who've been working hard and they deserve better than just being rounded up and kicked out of the country. It was amazing to hear him say that, but obviously he'd heard from an important ingredient in his political coalition. But that unravels the entire argument for what they've been doing, for the whole destruction of our Constitution.
Bingo! Trump finally spilled the beans on Thursday. After getting a dressing down from big agribusiness, he suddenly announced, we will no longer deport immigrants from farm states. Why? Because those people are hardworking. They contribute to the economy. They're the backbone of the economy. Did you just now realize that? So it turns out the issue wasn't illegal immigration after all. It was about whose interests it served. If you work in agriculture, you can stay, but if you're in the city, round them up, deport them, and serve it up to the TV cameras. Can a policy be this hypocritical, this corrupt? If these people are good and hardworking, why don't you treat those working in restaurants, hotels, and construction the same way? Because it's not about people, it's about the voting potential. When the agricultural giants push back, they become good kids. But if you're in a Democratic-governed state, there's no harm in portraying you as an internal enemy. Actually, this isn't Trump's immigration policy, it's his show policy. He's only happy when the screens show a city war image. Where does this leave us? At the point where the emperor has no clothes. The entire system has collapsed. There is no ideology left, only spectacle and self-interest. But the good news is, everyone can see this now. And perhaps, just perhaps, we can pave the way for a truly reasonable, humane immigration reform that both parties can support. But first, we need to pull the plug on this show.